Welcome to The Cynical Developer, the podcast that helps you to improve your development knowledge and career through explaining the latest and greatest in development technology and providing you with what you need to succeed as a developer. In this episode, we talk to Lee Mallon about the developer life cycle. Lee has run Rarely Impossible, a mobile app agency, for the last 8 years, but now has moved into the product world, building Voice OK. And I apologise for this summer, Lee and his family are leaving the UK to travel the world for an entire year. Possibly, depending on the situation in the world. But welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the very much cinematic intro.
It's not a problem at all. Trying to get away from that too formal approach that Cynical Developer has had for the last 4 years or so.
It's very much known for that, you know.
Yeah, well, it's very highbrow, isn't it? So,
yeah, the Polyster of the audio world.
Yeah. It's just missing the BBC voice, which I can't do. So I'm not even going to attempt that. But so to clear something up, we're here to talk about the developer lifecycle and not the development lifecycle. So this is going to be a discussion about Lee's adventures through being a developer, because I think most of the listeners out there are going to be people that have probably gone and done some sort of qualification or taught themselves, done a boot camp, gone and jumped into corporate, and they're living the enterprise lifestyle, or they're in startups, or they've been out and built a product. Or they're building multiple products. Yeah, they tend to stick in that lane. They don't tend to shift out of that. Whereas you've been and you've done all of them?
Pretty much.
Fantastic. It's going to be a very short show. Yes. No.
Just got to get the vibe going first.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about your journey, how it started and where you've been?
Yeah, sure. So I started coding at 12 years old.
This afternoon?
Yeah, 12 years old on a MXX 128K released in 1985, but I didn't get it till 1994. It was the Northern Time Zone. And my first app was the classic Hello World, but my second app, for some bizarre reason, was I found some code that was the checksum for credit cards. So I'd run the code from zero, and it would just keep running and just basically would print valid credit card numbers. Obviously, they weren't real credit card numbers because there's no expiry dates, but it was quite I feel like my career could have gone in one or two paths at that point in life. And then just kind of obviously just loved technology through schooling and stuff, and then went to college where we met.
Yep.
And actually, in thinking about this show, I didn't realize that my first ever software I sold was me and you together. We never actually did the project, but we sold it. Do you remember?
Was it DAX?
Yeah. So that was the very first. So this was like a CAD drawing company. I'd done work experience there, and afterwards they were like, "Oh, can you build basically like a online catalog kind of platform?" Obviously, and then we worked on it a bit, but I think it was like £260 they were going to pay us, something like that. Of which they did, and then didn't ask for anything.
Do you know what? That clears some stuff up, actually, because I remember making the website, and I remember that you could triple click the DAX logo, and it popped up and it said it was made by us.
Oh, really? I can't remember that.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what had happened to it, whether it had gone live or what had happened to it.
I just didn't think they did anything with it. But that was the first thing, and then worked for just some local business people, kind of, went through the motions of college and then uni, which obviously we went through together, and then went to Sri Lanka and volunteered for tsunami relief, but also taught IT, and that was quite an eye opener in understanding how technology and building kind of software could literally change a person's life. So I would teach these group of girls. So you would teach kids of all ages, but when the children turned 16, 17, they could do a 6-week course. And at the end of this 6-week course, they could then get a job in like a bank. So they would go from earning nothing to earning like £20 a month. And bear in mind, a teacher or a policeman or someone of, what was considered like a good job, they would earn like £50 a month. So this was like a game, like you could see the game changer of technology. And then anyway, I came back to the UK, and then I got my first job, I guess first proper tech job, for a company that did hardware and software, where I got my first business trip and got to go to a US Army base in Germany. That was interesting.
Nice.
And then met my wife and moved down to Bournemouth. And then I got to work on some big projects that were subcontracted from another agency. So brands like PepsiCo, Walker's Crisps, Tropicana, Budweiser, like that.
Yeah.
And
sort of big labels.
Yeah, like I remember, can I say this? So I remember, The Voice originally was launched in Holland.
Mm-hmm. And
I remember working on the voting system and having to be up to press go on the Facebook page so people could buy votes at the right time. And I had to watch Voice Holland. So anyway, so I got to kind of see that, and then I went freelancing, and that was fun to then not have a boss, not have any accountability, but also have no money. And then like all freelancers, I say like all freelancers. So then for me, did a lot of freelance stuff, did a lot of work, then started to work with like remote developers. I think we even worked together at that time on some stuff. And then built up a bit of a reputation, got an office, hired a team, grew a team, had like a 12-person agency, moved into the Xamarin world, became one of like 5 companies in the UK that were really good. So again, that gave us more kind of companies in the enterprise space. And then felt like I learned everything. Just got bored.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and you've done a lot. And I was sort of thinking, and that's an awful lot of stuff to do in such a short space of time. And then I thought about it a little bit more, and it's probably been about 15 years. There's 14 years, something like that. So it's not a huge amount of time, but it's not a little amount of time. But it's definitely an accelerated journey, I think.
Yeah, I think I was 30 when everything was like at the biggest.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe more, maybe 35, maybe 33. And then this way of working, which was very uncorporate. It wasn't working with dev teams building long form projects with lots of tests. It was very rapid developments, things that would last days, weeks, months maybe. And it was all about campaign-driven kind of development. And when you work in that way, you learn very quick.
Yeah.
And I always had the benefit of knowing Flash and C#, and then C# and JS. And whenever one of the technologies was out of fashion, the other one was always in fashion. So you could kind of jump backwards and forwards. And it was great. But I always wanted a product company. I always wanted to build something that I could fall in love with, and then I could get to know the customers, get to know the users, and just do all the stuff that whenever we worked on stuff in the agency world, we'd hand over to the business, to the team. And we still might work on it as like an external resource, but it was never ours. We couldn't add features that we thought, the customers wanted, or, fix things to our kind of timeframes, which is always a sad piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, it's. I think there's a lot of developers out there that they're always doing these side hustles for this passive income, and they just go, "Oh, this money will just come in and just come in." But like, I'm building a platform at the moment as well myself, a product, and what you described there is what I'm looking for. Is it's the passion of developing it as well, because you get to work on what you really want to work on for the product, the really cool bits of the product, and do what your customers really want, rather than working with probably an enterprise team that you've got about 45 different chefs coming in and who think they know what they want, and then you end up building absolute rubbish or absolute trash code for trash features that no one's ever going to use and don't actually fix the problem.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people who are in that type of situation, is their kind of day job now.
Yeah.
And they just don't enjoy it, but it pays well, it's security, especially in the current times.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult one, I think it's always, I think with this stuff, if we think about life cycle, I guess you could categorize it into 4 bits, which is, learning, employed, freelancer, owner, and arguably then like investor. That would be kind of the end, out type of thing. But if you're thinking just development, and I think some people just have to accept, like, sometimes you're not one or, all of them. You're not necessarily just one of them. You can jump around. You might mature into one of them different roles, but there is a lot of lessons going through each of them that I wish I'd known at the beginning, and I've learned the hard way.
Such as? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, such as it is. So at 23, I was taken to court over a project. Luckily won, so it's fine. And say like civil court, like a small claims type thing. And but when you're new and you don't really know business, and you're basically just a developer who's building stuff, and then there's a miscommunication or expectations of deliveries are just not work, then to go through 6 months of just waiting for post to arrive and not knowing what the repercussions are going to be, like, that's hard, like it's fine when you're on the other side, but if you're coming from the development world, like, it's them types of things. Like, I wish there'd been more support for that type of stuff, or I'd leaned on or found that either in a person or an organization. Like, now there's a lot more like growth hub type stuff where you could get that support, but it's it made me realize that specs are good and get people to sign stuff off is good.
Yeah. I was bitten quite early on, obviously. Thankfully not to the degree that you were, but I built a system that, for a client, that it kept evolving and evolving and evolving, and it changed from being like, I don't know, I think it was about an £800 to build the system. I think I ended up invoicing for about $6,000, and then the guy disappeared on me, so I'm out of pocket. He's got the system because I knew how to build software. I didn't know how to do the business side of it, the legalities of it. I didn't think about contracts. I didn't host the site. I put it on his own hosting and gave him all that, and he just stopped replying, disappeared with everything. And it's like, oh.
And the problem with that is you feel like you've wasted time. You haven't probably spent that much money, but it's time, which is then easy to self-justify as being okay, as like a learning experience, which, it is. But at the same time, your time does have, value.
Yeah.
And I think for anyone listening, like, that's probably out of all this, that's probably the number one kind of thing, is that unfortunately the world tries to see most things as commoditized, or will make you feel like there's another developer or another planner or another electrician or whatever it may be. But actually, if they've come to you and they want your expertise, then that's they've picked you. So therefore, you have to kind of go, well, this is, it's irrelevant how long it takes. More productized services, I think, is the way forward on that point. But that's a whole other episode.
Yeah. So I've spent most of my career in enterprise, in one shape, form or the other, whether it's brownfield development, whether it's greenfield, whether it's semi-startup. I don't think I could ever consider that I've worked for a real startup. Is that, and I've worked in agency as well. I've done agency work, but all of it was still building product. How do you see that being different from the way that you talked about building products?
As in for other people?
Yeah.
So they're projects. At the end of the day, you're building a product, but it's a project. Either it's a project to get to version 1. So actually, we were quite a... So in the early stage of the business, I would say this to be the case, that everything was projects. We'd do some work. Our job was to build it.
Mm-hmm.
It was not to shape it. It was not to decide features. It was just someone in the business has a vision. They've told the designer's loved rounded corners and has gone, can you build this thing? And we've gone, here's some money. This is how much it's going to cost. Give us some money and we'll build it. And again, it's fine. It's a good business. But you then get to that point of you become amazing at context switching because you're building probably 3 or 4 or 5 of these things at any one time. But it's so peak and trough type of work. Goes up and down and up and down. And then you hand it over. So you just don't get any, like it will die in 6 weeks. And then it'll just disappear. Which then also kind of allows you to be a bit bad practice in how you build stuff.
Because you don't have to maintain it.
You don't have to, no one has to maintain it.
Right, okay.
Like because these things were typically campaign-driven things, like Walker's Crisp would launch a new advert, and they'd have some competition for, like you remember when they did the whole flavor thing, you could name a flavor. Like we built that, that thing, and that would last for say 3 months.
Yeah,
and then it just disappears, and I think that is awesome in some ways. So for anyone who works in that world, they'll know that it makes you a very agile, not to use the agile word, but it just makes you really quick. Like you can build stuff really fast. You can see around the problems. Like your objective is to get it to work, not to make it persist. Whereas if you're coming more from the enterprise world, and we've worked with enterprises, but typically we build a V1 and then we hand it over. We will train their team and then they'll take it forward. But it would be so slow, so laborious, of which I completely understand why, but some people are just not wired that way to work.
Yeah. And I guess when you're building those sort of products, you're brought the designs, this is what it's got to do. I guess you don't question the why or the how this could be better. It's just, this is what you've asked us to build. We build it.
Yeah, completely. Like later on in our kind of relationships where we'd work with customers for like multiple years, like them things would change. They would come to us first and say, but normally they would still come to us with, is this technically possible?
Right.
Not, do you think our users would want this? Because they would go to the strategy partner for that.
Mm-hmm.
You would get, that's the one thing with agencies in particular, that you would get put in a box. Even if you were very good, like we were one of the top 5 Xamarin agencies in the country. So we built Xamarin stuff. We did loads of Azure stuff and loads of web stuff that we could do. But no, we were in the box and we'd outdo our performance on the mobile deliveries for companies and be like, we also do this other stuff. And they're like, no, you're a mobile partner. We've got a web partner.
Right.
You just get kind of put in this box. And again, that's fine. But it just comes back to, again, for me, it was always a sense of this doesn't feel right. And this life cycle thing is a recurring theme of going like, what do you want to do? And these things are always easy to pick because they're really good, money, they're interesting projects. We got to play around with so much cool tech. We were really tight with Microsoft, so we got access to like early access to things as well. It was, it was awesome. It really was. But, after some time, you realize that, that every shiny tech is just a way to drive Azure revenue. And Yeah, and these things are money machines. And, they're businesses at the end of the day. And sometimes you just want to be able to email the customer of the end product to say, I'll look into that bug for you and fix it. Which we would never get to do. We'd go through like 7 rounds of people first. And, and then someone else would decide if it was viable, if it was worth doing or not.
Sure.
And then you get hesitant that you don't want to tell anyone about your product, about that you worked on it because it's got 2 stars in the App Store.
Yeah, that's something that is probably difficult, because like with the stuff that I've done over the years, I've got stuff that it'd probably be the same as you, that I've got stuff I can't talk about what I built. It's covered by NDAs, so those NDAs may have expired, they may not have done, I don't know. But if it was ever under an NDA, I probably don't talk about it just to be safe. And then I get to the end of the day and like, so what have you built? And like, well, I built a system that did this, that, and the other. Oh, right. Who was that for? I can't tell you. How did it work? I can't tell you. And they're like, oh, right. Well, have you built anything cool? Yeah, I built some really cool stuff for some big names that you would know. You've probably used my stuff, but I can't tell you that I built that stuff.
Yeah. Our website is basically we do prototyping stuff. If you want to know who we work with, you need to call us.
Yeah. So that is horrible, because you can't talk about your product. And I guess that having your own product, like you're talking about there, that you've built Voice OK, that's going to be your baby. No matter how beautiful or how ugly your baby is, that is your baby. It's what you can do. You can tweak. You can play with it. You can shout from the rooftops about it as well.
Yeah, and actually, the precursor to that is quite interesting. So we've got to a point with the business. Everything was great. We had a lot of recurring kind of clients and customers. So we didn't have to panic. There was no, we always ran a decent runway and things. So. And we knew the product was something we'd always dabbled in, but it was time to kind of get a bit serious about it. So in 2018, 19, 2018/19, we basically prototyped a new thing every week. So we prototyped about 43 things in a year.
Right, okay.
And this would be as simple as, some things were as simple as a web page. Some things would be like a full-on video trailer. Some other stuff would be like physical hardware with sensors and a lot of investment, completely range. Now, that was because we just kept having these ideas. We said, right, let's do this. And then at the end of the year, we'll pick 6 things. And over the following year, being 2020, we will release one every 2 months. And then we'll see which one works and resonates, and then we'll drive that one forward. So in March 2020, we were due to release a tool that would basically help predict what you've got in your kitchen. So it would understand what's in your fridge, what's understand your cupboards, and over time would get a feel for what you have. Just a very clever machine learning system. However, it was really dependent on having supermarket delivery slots available.
So, and something happened globally.
Something happened that meant that was not the case, which completely destroyed this product. And that product is yet to launch, because we tried launching it again in October of that year. And surprisingly, something else happened in October of that year. Yeah. So anyway, so we had that. But one of the other projects was this product called Voice OK, which was something we've been slowly working on over a few years around Synthesized Voices, all from a back premise of me being gifted my great-great-auntie's diaries from the 1930s and 40s and wanting to digitize them and then potentially add my great-great-auntie's voice to this. So I could basically Black Mirror talk to my great-great-auntie about like her life.
Yep.
And there was only 7 seconds of audio of her talking, wasn't enough. So we started working on speech synthesization in a very privacy-centric way, kind of away from the big boys that were working on it. And then we got to 2020. Something happened in the world. which meant that a lot of people weren't able to record their voices anymore. So that we were building the kind of the next step, which was how do you synthesize your voice if you have this audio, and found that actually most people don't have audio of themselves speaking.
Yep.
And also they don't have it clear, high quality enough, nor do they have the transcription of what they've said. So we quickly adapted what we were building into a very simple app, which had kids' bedtime stories, so they're easy to read. You read an hour's worth of audio, then you could it was a free app, you could export it to Dropbox or to Google Drive and forget about it. And in theory, well, actually, not in theory, you could take that audio today, stick it into one of the synthesization platforms, and it would sound like you. It'd be a bit robotic, but it would sound like you. But more importantly, that 1 hour's worth of audio, in 5 years' time, when the algorithms get better, could be used to feed, and the voice would be identical. And you wouldn't have to record any new sounds of you. So you could record all the audio in April 2020. Something might have happened to that person that year, but you would have this audio preserved. And that, that has a very mixed... People think it's cool, people think it's freaky. Anyone who's lost anyone gets it completely.
Yep.
So this became kind of our pet project to a degree. And then we launched the first version in last year, and it was received well. And we got all of this great feedback from users of 9 out of 10 times it was, I wish I'd had this because of we lost X person 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 3 years ago.
Yep.
And then this realization of, holy, this could be the one that I've been waiting for 20 years. Like, if I can monetize this in some way, like this could be the product that I get to kind of fall in love with and make the primary part of the business.
Sure.
And so that's kind of what happened. That kind of became the focus. We still had the business. We scaled things back a bit and kind of focused on that. Obviously, that kind of slowed down a bit with everything that happened in 2020.
Yep.
But that then coupled with something else, which I'm sure we'll talk about, meant this new kind of change in kind of the developer lifecycle, which is going from running and operating a business of like 12 people to a few years later being a solo developer founder of a product.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I guess you've almost come full circle on it, because you started off on your own in your bedroom writing code, not selling it to anybody, and now you've got full circle right back to being not quite sat in your bedroom, but sat in your home office with a few more life luxuries on your own, writing a product with yet anybody to sell it to.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, it feels equally as good then as it does now.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice to work on something. The one negative to it is, like all developers, like, we are perfectionists and we want it to be perfect. And, unfortunately, it's a cliche thing to say, if you're not embarrassed by your first version, then you release too late. And I can kind of guarantee, because we released our first version, it didn't work. So that was not the case. And our first version on Android still doesn't work very well. So it's definitely a thing that you just have to get these things out there so people can see them. But I do think you have to fall in love with it. Like everyone says, and actually the one thing that for me was, I would read and listen to all these tech, like, Y Combinator and all these kind of American and British, European things around like VC funding. And, you just have to get to know a problem and you really have to understand it. And then you can just build a solution. Yeah. And I was like, but I never knew a problem. My world was development, and I was aware enough of my own shiny red ball syndrome to try not to kind of go after every single idea. And, but then that being said, eventually it came to this product now, which is this Voice OK. And I do think that is my one. It just took me 25 years to find it.
So I think that you'll be in the same boat as many developers out there, is that we are by nature problem solvers. We're not problem finders. Other people bring us the problem and we work out how to solve that problem. But finding that problem on your own can be quite difficult. And like we've had sounding boards over the years where we'd bounce ideas off each other, and like you'd tear all my ideas to shreds, and it was always a case of if you got to the end of it and it still sounded viable, then maybe it was a good idea to go with it. And I built a platform that was for holiday stuff, and it was the first time I think I'd had a good idea that seemed like it had some legs. And I built the alpha, sent it out to people like Kayak and Booking.com. I'm going to call you out on the show. And said, here's what I'm working on. Here's the alpha. Can I have access to your APIs to forward people onto you when they've used this system? And they went, oh no, you need more people visiting your site before we give you access to that. I was like, it's an alpha. There is nobody looking at it. And without your input, without access to those APIs, my product falls flat on its face. So it sort of stumbled at that point, and I was like, well, I could twist it. There's something I could do with it. And then that situation that put a stop to your grocery shopping application also put a stop to this and completely wiped out the holiday industry, more or less. So I'm like, well, I dodged a bullet there, didn't I? So I'll probably pick that project up again. But then I found another project, another platform that I'm building, and it solves a problem that I've got. There's existing products out there that do what I'm doing. They just do it really, really badly. And being a developer, I wanted to solve that problem where it did what I wanted. And then I talked to a few people. I talked to a few of the wrong people who went off to somebody else and got a team and started building my product. But I'm not disheartened, and I'd have carried on with it. But the problem that I found to solve, even if no one else uses it, I can still use it. But I'd hope that sort of becomes a good product that I could sell and work on the similar dreams to yourself.
But I think it's a truly valid point, because, and I do think it takes time. I think anyone who's working on a side project or in a company where it just doesn't quite feel right. Like that's not a wrong feeling to have. Like I started writing a list of all the things I tried to build over the years, and it is ridiculously long.
Yeah.
And it's because they were all such good learning. Like they would just all kind of just nudge things forward. And everyone said, like when you hear like the classic entrepreneur stories, and at some point they either remortgage their house or they put all the money on credit cards.
Yeah.
Because they were like, they were so certain, or that's just what they did. And I always thought, I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, why would you get yourself into that position?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I never found the thing. I was like, I get it now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like my wife would let me do any of them things, but I can understand why people get to that point. But more importantly, I think that there's no, for me with the Voice OK product, which currently is going into like it's becoming a V2, and it's like that. This is like the monetization version. I genuinely believe there is no one else in the world that can build this product better than I can. Like, and that might be complete and utter ego-driven nuttiness, but I've never felt that about anything else I've built before.
Yeah.
That this is the first time in 25 years where I've gone. So if I see competitors in the market, like we all do, and like you've done previously on stuff I know you've built, and you get disheartened about it, or other people will say, like, a competing product launched in Bournemouth from an American company 6 weeks ago for one aspect of what I'm doing in voice.
Yeah.
And people I know saw it and were like, and they thought it was my product.
Right.
Because obviously, why would, because we're here. So of course that would make sense.
The chance of it being from the same city, in the same country.
Completely.
Around the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. And And obviously, you get told this the first thing, you take a little, you get a few half flutters when you're like, oh, crap. And but then I was like, that's cool. It doesn't really matter what it is, because I genuinely believe this problem that I want to solve. I just think I know the problem domain as much as anyone else, and have the skill to build it, and have invested 25 years to get to this point on like just business and product and service. And also this problem domain, I started thinking about it 5 years ago, and no one built anything in the last 5 years. And I might be completely wrong, but it just feels right. And it sounds like such a cop-out answer, but I would bet my house on it. I won't be allowed to bet my house on it.
Yeah.
But it's the first time I've got to that point where I've thought, this is the one I would take the risk on. And that's a very special thing to find.
Yeah. I think, like, with mine, because I had a bit of a mental health issue, and that's why the Cynical Developer went off the air for a few months. And during that time, this rival product got developed, and it released in February this year. And then I took myself off to a dark room and cried into my teddy bear for a good week or two about it. And then I think one of the big things about it was, or the redeeming qualities of someone else building it validated that there was a need for this product in the market.
100%.
And the fact that these people have been and implemented the features that I talked about and implemented them in a way that I talked about, and people were ranting and raving how great they were, again, it validated that my thoughts were right, regardless of the fact they implemented it before I did. And it could be, because I'm not saying someone really did run off and talk to them. It could be just that we've both had the same thought process and both built the same product in the same way. We're different sides of the globe. This stuff can happen. But I had to take some solace in the fact, there is a market for this. Stop whinging just because somebody beat you to it. iPhone wasn't the first smartphone, but look at that now. It's you've got to you just got to pick it up and carry on. If you believe in what you're working on and you enjoy what you're working on, then why not?
And also, if you can follow it through, and I think that comes back to the point where you made, like, what's different between you building stuff for other people and building something for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, both of them are enjoyable. Like, I love the clients we've worked with. Yeah. I also don't like some of them that we don't work with anymore. But the ones we worked with, and we just really got to know the customer, the end user, them. Like, it was awesome. It really was, to be an extension of that, and to get to work on stuff that was so great, but also not have the kind of... We didn't have the day-to-day life of running an enterprise. So we could do random stuff and show them and be like, what if this hooked into, smart speaker X, and you could do this? And that was great. But when it's your own thing, most people do try and solve their own problem. And I can't wait to have, with what's coming in V2 of the Voice OK product, I can't wait to have this one feature in it. If no one else even uses it, like, just this one bit alone is worth every single hour that I've spent on it.
So going back probably 30 minutes or so, you were talking about some of the lessons that you'd learned along your journey. Some of them will be developer skills. Some of them would be business skills. Are they interchangeable? And do you think that's... have you retrained or anything to get some of these skills? Because what I've seen along the way is you get people that go, I like to write code. I'm going to get a job as a coder. And they do that. And they go and they spend 4, 5, 6, 7 years coding, and they make their way up the hierarchy, and all of a sudden they're a manager. And then they're a department manager, and then they're vice president of IT, and the next thing they're CEO of their own IT company, and then you talk to them and they're still a developer. So did you go and retrain to get these skills, or was it just suck it and see? Or are you still just a scared little developer playing at this? I'm calling you out.
I'm still a scared 12-year-old playing at all this. Yeah. No, it's a valid question, and I think actually, in hindsight, I should have probably done an MBA, and not become a developer.
Right.
Not saying that would have probably worked, because the business, the way kind of you build something and then solve a problem with it, was always much more a draw for me than the implementation. I still loved code and I still loved doing the implementation, but the other bit, the strategy, the solving the problem in the real world, was always that thing. So I do wonder what would happen if if we'd not met and gone a different direction.
Yeah. I doubt I'd even be a developer if
that is true.
If we hadn't met. So that is a whole different timeline and what I would have done.
Yeah. It's the problem with most developers, if you're good, you get moved into a position to not code. Be it in enterprise and corporate or not, it doesn't really matter what industry vertical you're in, it seems to follow that path. Now, if you're running an agency, or it doesn't really matter, like an external consultancy business that's selling services, but if you own it, and to be honest, you can decide what you do. So if you want to still code, then so be it. I haven't stopped coding for 25 years. There'll be points when it was a few hours a week versus 100 hours a week.
Yeah. But
all time, I always kept my, because I did enjoy it, the kind of finger on the buzz. But it was, in hindsight, I wish I'd done more formal training or more support around the business running aspect, and also to be a good manager. I look back on now when I was employed or working for other people. It's really hard to remember what it's like to be an employee when you haven't been one for so long.
Yeah.
And how you respond as a manager to employees, though you might think you're being straight and direct, that is not what the other person wants, or needs for them to be able to get the most out of them. So we did a lot of work, the psychometric tests and figuring out what colors people were and these things. And it all sounds very fluffy, but 9 out of 10 times it was spot on. And it would show you how, not necessarily how you were, but more importantly, how you could communicate with someone else who isn't like you.
Yeah.
And get the best from it. And I think that's unfortunately a trait that most developers don't have.
Yeah.
In my experience anyway.
Yeah, that interpersonal skills, and I think we talked about it before we started the recording, but emotional intelligence as well, around the way that different people perceive different things, and
just empathy,
understanding. Yeah,
and I think it's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad thing, but it will make your life a hell of a lot easier, especially if you want to move into more managerial or business ownery, or even product owner. If you want to own a thing, customers are going to shout at you at some point, both positive and negatively. And if you can't communicate well with them, then I think that, I did go through, in Rarely Impossible, is from an agency point of view, I did go through a lot of mentoring programs and had experienced business people. You meet them once a month and they kind of give you this kind of, just guidance on how to run the business. But one thing I wish I had done is got a coach, professional development coach, not for the business, but for me. someone who I could be like, right, this is what I want to do, or this is, this might be an employee, something's just not quite gelling. Like, how can I fix this? And someone who would help me develop on a one-to-one basis. And
because I think a lot of people, as I said, they get into coding and they sail into these other positions, these managerial positions, and it's not for everybody. And I think people have a skewed view of what certain roles are, and then they go and they apply that skewed view to it and do the role really badly. And it's not through any real sort of like vindictiveness of that person. They just weren't cut out for doing that role. I've worked with a lot of developers that have become managers or they become team leads. And like, as a developer being a team lead, you're there for the team. You're not there for writing code. You talked about wanting to keep your hand in all the time. That I've had people come to me and go, I hate it. I hate being team lead. I don't get to write code anymore. I'm like, well, no, because you're the lead. You're leading everyone else. You're leading the project. You're making sure that what they're doing is right. You don't go to a battlefield and see the general stood on the front line taking shots at the enemy. He stood at the back directing them.
Yeah, I think but there is also, I think, a broader problem in that from an industry point of view, that especially in the UK, it's only seen as a way to progress is by moving up to management, both salary and, responsibility. You don't get many, unless you're in a big, like, a FANG type company. You don't get many companies where you can earn the same amount as a VP of technology as a very good developer.
Yeah.
And both have got equal experience. There's a tide of responsibility, and we've lost the craftsmanship aspect of software development. It's still, building trade. Sorry to any builders.
Yeah, you just alienated at least like 0.1% of my listening audience.
Yeah, apologies.
So we've sort of talked about your journey and the way that you've gone about things, and I think I've always sort of looked at what you're doing and poked a little bit of fun, going, "Oh, look, he's trying to live the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week." Putting all those practices in, and you've almost become your own meme now, because what you're about to embark on, to almost everybody. I put money on it. Everybody listening to this is going to go, what? How? And this is the stupid voice I did at the start, was the fact that we talked about you were a developer and you work for other people, then you work for yourself and you got this product and you're great. I've got this product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shelve everything for 12 months and I'm going to disappear and go around the world with the family.
Yeah.
It's insane. Jealous, massively jealous of it. But it's like you are living the impossible dream to go and do that. Are you going to still continue to develop? Are you going to work on Voice OK, or is this going to be 12 months jolly for you? Vacation, holiday, whatever colloquialism you want to use.
It's obviously, with the world as it is, who knows what it will turn out like. But yes, we are planning to leave the country and go on a trip. We are hoping to go to about 23 countries across pretty much all the continents. Or we could end up in a travel lodge in Slough for a year. We're not really sure how it's going to play out.
For those international listeners, that's a very high class, very well respected holiday resort. Yeah.
Sorry for anyone who lives at Slough. Not for the comment, just I'm sorry.
Just sorry that you live there. Oh, well, I've just been taken off the air. Cancelled.
But it's something we've always wanted to do. There was never a good time to potentially do it. We penciled in to do it in kind of August 2021. Obviously, we didn't know what was going to happen. That happened in the last year. But we kind of got it. We're kind of just going to take it and see what happens. But yes, so basically we are in essence taking a year off, no work at all, or no need to work. Let's probably phrase it more that way.
I was going to say, because I know you quite well. There's no way you're going to spend a whole year and not do any work at all. You're going to have to do something.
Completely. And it's not going to be, for the last, I've run my own company for the last 12 years and arguably have not, I would imagine my phone has not been off for more than 1 hour of that time.
Yep.
Like any holidays would be holidays and nice holidays, but was never 100% there.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward
I can manage a week, and then I'm itching to get back and do something.
Completely. And I'm looking forward to now having a situation whereby I can just leave my phone in the room for like 3 days. Because I basically put everything in place. So actually, I guess that's probably a good thing to mention is so moving from agency to product was not necessarily a stop the agency or keep the agency going and doing product alongside or a complete switch. It was we were working on the product in 2020, 2019, and then me and my family decided we were going to do this thing in 2021 and realized that we couldn't do the business, the service business, the agency business, and travel the world. It's just not feasible. For me anyway, as a person. I can't, me, I can't turn off. It just wouldn't work. So we put it on hiatus, which means that business in essence is not closed down because it potentially will come back in a year's time, but the team is completely disbanded. Everyone's got different jobs. And I moved into, we used to train a lot of software teams, so I've moved into just doing some of that before we go and helping some other companies. But all in preparation for, in essence, having a year off without any accountability for time. So I'll still work on the Voice OK product. The aim is to have version 2 out before we leave, and then it's a year of marketing. And luckily, we're going to a lot of countries with a lot of languages, so it's going to be the most cost-effective international rollout known to man of a product. And also, I imagine going around the world and seeing how technology is being used in other countries, especially with the acceleration that's going to happen after the last year.
Yeah,
it's going to, I imagine, an abundance of opportunities and ideas are going to come out of it. But it's, it's one of them things where we've always wanted to do it, and it's just cool, and it's also really, it's just not what people do, which is just hilarious when you get to tell people and you see their reaction.
Yeah.
And
I think the listeners will be sitting there thinking, well, from what he said, it's just him and the wife, so it's easy enough for two people to just box their life up and put it into storage and go. But we don't want to talk too much about your personal life. But it's not just you and the wife; you've got kids as well. Yeah, relatively young kids.
Yeah, 2 primary school kids that were taken out of school. We'll be homeschooling them for the year. And obviously taking them around, and you can't leave them in countries apparently. But for them as well though, it's going to be like they're going to have the best school year potentially ever.
Yeah,
when they're reading about
you're at a water park and you go, right, now it's time for maths and physics lessons, kids. We're going to go down this chute. I want you to work out by the time we get to the bottom how fast you were going.
100%. That's exactly what we're going to do. Or when we go to learn about volcanoes, it'll be like, cool, let's go to a volcano.
Yeah.
We were looking at the map, and we'd kind of pre-worked out some of the countries we were planning to visit. And then my son was watching a thing about giant turtles, Galapagos Islands.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked where it is. And you have to kind of apply. They only let a certain amount of people in.
Yes.
Because of the habitat. But I was like, let's go. Like, if we can get in, like, we're going to go to Peru, so
if I wasn't jealous before, I'm really jealous now if you get to go to some of the Galapagos Islands. Really jealous of that.
But this is the thing. It's this is not to go all kind of we made our own future type of thing.
Yeah.
But this was a calculated, planned thing to do at some point. And yes, it kind of took 2020 as a pulled the trigger to do this because, you just don't know what's around the corner. And you can do it. And especially the way the world's going now after the last year, people are working from home or working remotely. The one, though there's no need to work on this trip, one of the things we used to do in the agency a lot was train software teams how to build mobile apps, in essence, or like onboard onto Azure. Now, that over the last year, we haven't been able to do any of that face-to-face. So we had to do that remotely. So you adapt this into a remote kind of process.
Yeah.
And like in theory, even without the business, like I can deliver that anywhere in the world, in person or remotely.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore you kind of think...
You got forced into developing that remote package.
Completely.
For giving that training, whereas it probably would have had the thing not happened that happened, it would have been on the to-do list and maybe never got around to doing it because it was easy just to meet in person.
Yeah, and also perceived value. 3 days of intense training and then some other package stuff that would go with it is a higher ticket item than Zoom for 3 hours a day for 6 days.
Yeah.
Which would typically get compared to some of the online learning type platforms, which you can buy for say $25 a month. But they're two very different propositions. But before 2020, like you couldn't even try and explain, you're gonna sit on Zoom and learn this stuff live from someone, and it's going to cost you thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
But now it's become normalized.
Yeah.
Because also companies are willing to do it, and also therefore they get the knowledge. It's the same output. If anything, it's a little bit better because you are maybe more flexible on, they get stuck 5 days later, or just jump on a quick call. I can fix the problem for you rather than spending 3 weeks trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that, and again, that comes back to the thing of this, the life cycle of this stuff is that, there is no, you're a developer, you're a manager, you're a business owner, you're a trainer, you're a consultant, you're a product owner. You don't have to be in one of these buckets. It can be a few years here, a few years there, 3 years here and there, or at the same time. Like, I think I think until you find the things that you really enjoy, like, just keep trying.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always joked that I'd love to be sat on a beach somewhere, writing code, doing my job from there, a couple of hours a day on the beach next to the pool. The irony is, I hate the sun. The sun hates me. I get sunstroke from looking at holiday magazines. So sitting on the beach writing code's not probably ever going to happen. And the fact I hate working on a laptop. I'd rather have a desktop to write my code and have a million screens rather than that one little screen. But if I could get to that'd be fantastic. And I think like the family would benefit from it more. I worked for a company many years ago now that had no set hours. It was just get the project done. I didn't have the family commitments that I have now, but back then it would have been so handy because I could have been available more to the family. Whereas now, even as a contractor, I tend to work long hours. And as soon as they're in bed, I'm working more hours. So I'm still not as available as what I could be.
Yeah, and I think, and to your point about the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week, I don't think I've ever not worked 4 hours in an hour in the last 25 years. So I think it's not necessarily about do you want to work 4 hours a week? I think it's, can you find something that you enjoy that feels like you're only working 4 hours a week?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a good line.
Yeah, it all comes back to the one, doesn't it? Is that if you do something that you're really passionate about and really love, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah, completely.
Because it's not really work. You're doing something that you really enjoy doing. And to be fair, writing code would be that. If it wasn't for product owners, for customers, for other team members, writing code would be fantastic. apart from without all those, you wouldn't get paid. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I think even that, though, I think where if you find the right thing, I think you can have all that. I think it's just some people, unfortunately, just don't, and people also have circumstances that means they have to take the crappy job, a potentially well-paid crappy job. Like, we all have different circumstances. I'm very fortunate to be in the situation I'm in. I've worked my arse off to get there, but I also understand a lot of it was luck, but luck that was created.
Yeah,
and
that's a personal bugbear of mine. When people go, you need to count yourself lucky. I worked damn hard to get me to where I am. I created that luck.
Yeah, but but then at the same time, it's still luck. It's lucky to have been born in the UK at the time there's so many factors that can play into this, and you just need to appreciate. Just don't be a beep.
Yeah, as your famous sort of slogan, your tagline is, go and check out his LinkedIn. I think it's on there as his.
Oh no, it's off or something.
Oh, is it? Yeah. It's Don't be a male member.
Don't be a duck.com.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's a I don't know. I think it's one of them things where you everyone has to have a friend who wants to travel the world when everything else seems like it's going perfectly, just to make everyone else question what they're doing.
Yeah, you've always got to have that one person that's raising that bar a little bit higher. Why it always has to be you, I don't know. But yeah. You've always got a dream. Shoot for the moon, and you never know, you might hit the stars. Let's fill it all with cliches.
Yeah. It's not even getting to the space thing.
Yeah. We won't go there. But I think your journey should inspire a lot of people that are listening. If not, make them turn off in sheer green-eyed monster jealousy of, I wish I could have done that. But I guess it's never too late. You can always do it as long as you plan it. And
you don't even have to plan it.
But you got to be in a financial position to be able to do it.
Do you?
Well, unless you want to be a stowaway on an aeroplane, yeah.
But you could work as you travelled.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You could pick countries where the cost of living is dramatically less than the UK. There's countries where, like, for example, in planning this trip, we've done a lot of research around even just visas. We've got backup plans in place in case the situation that's currently going on in the world doesn't improve. And for example, the Bahamas, Dubai, Singapore, these countries already have like remote working visas. So, for example, in Dubai, they launched 2 visas during 2020. One of which was if you work for an international company, it doesn't have to be like a massive international company, just a company that would allow you to live in another country. Mm-hmm. And for, I think it's like £500, you do all the visa stuff. You have to prove a certain level of income depending on how many dependents you have. But if you meet the thresholds, you can basically go and live there for a year. Get access as a resident, so you can get access to schooling, local bank accounts, that type of stuff. And then for like £1,500, actually that's not the case.
So
the wrong way around.
But it's taken me back to what I said. You've got to plan it, because there's no way you would have known that without planning it.
Yeah, but now you can just watch my daily vlog all about it, and then it's sold.
I saw it. He went for the long tail sale here.
Yeah, but there's 2 visas in Dubai. There's a £500 one and a £1,500 one. The £500 one is if you work for an international company, and as long as you can hit some minimal thresholds of income, you can live there, and you can get access to resident access. So you can access, you can rent property, that type of stuff. But if you pay for the £1,500 one, you can set up yourself as a freelance business there, which means you then get access to a local bank account, but you can still work for international clients. So you can still work with any clients you have in the UK, but with one great exception: no income tax.
No VAT, no money back, no guarantee.
Exactly. So, and that's just there. Like, there's other countries that do the same things, and I think it's only gonna increase.
Yeah.
The nomadic type of lifestyle is going to improve, and also just general work from home. Talent for technology is going to go through the roof over the next year, like the demand for it, and people are going to have to accommodate. And I think, I know loads of people already who they might not be doing something like what we're doing, but they're relocating, they're moving, they're jumping in a camper van for 7 months of the year. There's all these different ways of which you can do these things. Like, I know someone who's a developer who has decided they're going to just do contracts for 6 months of the year and then run a pizza shop for 6 months of the year. Because he really likes making pizza.
Yeah. Doing 6 months on, 6 months off is what my original plan was. And I just didn't ever get to that point. For reasons only of being lazy, I think. So,
yeah, it's you need you need a motivation, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
For me, it's the 25 water slides I want to go on whilst we travel the world. So.
Yeah. So I think the moral of the story: stop dreaming about it. Get out there and do it.
And if anyone is like, I don't know where to go, like, just ping me a DM or an email and we can have a chat. Like, and I genuinely mean it. Like, I will reply.
Yeah. It's not like he's doing any work anyway on his trip around the world. Just make sure you don't do it while he's traveling around the world, because he won't reply because his phone's off. But until he goes, all his details will be in the show notes and on the website, so you can go and stalk him on there and talk to Lee. But it's been a really interesting chat, and I think people should get something from today. But thank you again for coming on and sharing with us what you're doing with your life as a developer, and that it's always nice to catch up.
Fourth time a charm.
Yeah, I think you may be in the lead now for reoccurring appearances.
Woo-hoo.
I think you were joint first. I'll have to have a word with a few people, see if they want to come on and do like a double show. So thanks for coming on. Thank you for everyone out there listening and supporting the show. Hopefully you're enjoying us back on the air with this slightly more relaxed format. I'm James Stuart, and you've been listening to Lee Mallon talking about the developer lifecycle. If you have any questions about this or any other episode, then drop us an email, a tweet, or leave a comment on the website, where you can find all the resource links, show notes for each episode. And if you enjoy this episode, please leave a review on your favourite podcast platform, iTunes, Stitcher, whatever it is, and help The Cynical Developer to reach more developers around the globe.